Okay, so are you ready for this one? It's a story that honestly could only involve one family. You know the one.
The Furies?
The Furies. A wild night out in Manchester and a brotherly feud that, let me tell you, people are still talking about it.
It's classic Fury family drama. Explosive, unpredictable, always entertaining.
It really is. And you found some pretty incredible source material about this whole thing. For those who need a quick refresher, it's John and Peter Fury, both boxing legends, obviously, who decide to have themselves a little lads' night out in Manchester.
Yeah.
And anyone who knows even a little bit about the Furies can already guess this is going to be, shall we say, an interesting night.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
To put it mildly, exactly. So they start out pretty tame, actually, having a few pints at a pub, reminiscing about, I don't know, the glory days, the typical brotherly bonding stuff.
Right. But then, fueled by what one of these stories describes as copious amounts of liquid courage, let's just say things take a turn.
It's always fascinating how in these situations, alcohol can be such an accelerant.
Oh, totally.
Like it just strips away that thin layer of, civility.
Yeah.
And it reveals these raw personalities underneath.
Yeah. And, with the Furies, those personalities are anything but subtle.
Not subtle at all.
The story describes this very palpable shift in the atmosphere as John never wanted to back down from a challenge, never wanted to shy away from the spotlight. He gets this glint in his eye and he decides, we're going out. And not just out, they're going to one of Manchester's apparently most notorious nightclubs.
A who's still got it contest. A who's still got it contest. Now, hold on. What's interesting here is John doesn't just suggest it, he's got to prove it. This is important to him. Why is that, do you think?
I think that speaks volumes about John's personality.
Yeah.
He needs to be the center of attention, the life of the party.
Yeah.
Even if it means, maybe a little bit of embarrassment along the way, potentially.
Okay, but what about Peter? Does he at least try to talk him down? Like, hey, how about a nice game of darts instead?
Not really, no. If anything, this story suggests that Peter is almost amused by it all.
Really?
Yeah, like even he can't resist seeing where his brother's crazy antics are going to lead them next.
So they get to this club.
Oh, boy.
And honestly, you can practically hear the thumping music and smell the spilled drinks just from the description. Like, it's that kind of place.
It sounds awful.
The kind of place where inhibitions go to die. And John, being John, dives in headfirst.
Headfirst, yep.
And this is where I think you start to see that really fascinating dynamic between these two brothers, even when they're not, in the boxing ring.
Yeah, absolutely. Outside the ring.
Because the story paints this very clear and hilarious picture of John just dominating the dance floor with moves that, well, let's just say they defy rhythm and logic.
Oh, no.
At one point, he even attempts a handstand.
A handstand.
A handstand. You can picture it.
Oh, I can definitely picture that. John Fury, a force to be reckoned with in the ring, brought low by a poorly executed party trick.
But endearing though he may be,
Sure.
John's antics, they don't stop there.
Of course not.
He ends up attaching himself to a bachelorette party, regaling them with these outrageous stories, probably embellished from his boxing days.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And the women, according to the source, are equal parts terrified and captivated. It's classic John Fury.
Classic John Fury. But I think this is where that line between harmless fun and maybe, potentially problematic behavior starts to get a little blurry.
Yeah, you're right.
John's need for attention, it kind of overshadows any sense of self-awareness.
And this is where the alcohol probably comes back into play. Because, fueled by who knows how many more drinks at this point, John decides to up the ante, if you will.
Oh, no. What did he do?
With an impromptu, wait for it, striptease.
What?
On a chair.
No.
In the middle of this crowded nightclub.
A striptease.
An attempted one. The story doesn't specify if he actually managed to remove any clothing.
Oh, thank goodness.
Thank goodness for small mercies, right. But still, you have to wonder what's going through Peter's mind at this point. What do you even do when your brother decides to perform a PG-13 show in the middle of a nightclub?
I can't even imagine. I'd probably just be calculating the fastest exit route.
Yeah, exactly. But before he can formulate an escape plan, things go from bad to worse.
It always does.
Because John, of course it's John, ends up in a brawl with the bouncers.
He did not.
Oh, he did. The story does not hold back on the details either, describing John's attempts at wrestling moves that would make a seasoned referee cringe.
Oh, my goodness.
How many bouncers did it take to get him out of there?
2, according to the story.
2. A testament to John's strength even under the influence, right. So they get thrown out. John's disheveled but seemingly unfazed. And Peter, I'm imagining Peter is desperately wishing for an invisibility cloak at this point.
Right.
But the night isn't over yet, is it? Because now comes the incident that, to me, just perfectly sums up this whole dynamic between these two brothers.
The kebab.
The infamous kebab.
The infamous kebab.
It's almost a symbol of their differences, isn't it?
So they're standing outside this club, right? Probably smelling like sweat and spilled beer and just a tinge of regret. And John, because of course it's John, decides what they need after a night of, brawling and near stripteases.
Yeah.
Is a kebab.
Of course. Makes perfect sense.
Perfect sense. For John, maybe. But this is where I think the story gets really interesting because it's not just a drunken night out anymore.
It's about, this fundamental clash in their personalities, how they see the world.
Absolutely. And the kebab becomes this really interesting symbol of that.
Oh, yeah.
For John, it's simple. I'm hungry, here's a solution.
Right, exactly.
But for Peter, it represents just this complete disregard for, consequences.
Yeah. Dude, you just made a spectacle of yourself, potentially ruined a reputation, and all you can think about is food.
Precisely. And it's that classic dynamic you see everywhere, families, relationships, living in the moment versus thinking about the future.
Totally. And how does that actually play out, though? Does Peter just walk away and leave John to this kebab-fueled bliss?
Not quite. The story describes this really heated exchange between them.
Oh, this is the good part.
Like a verbal sparring match.
Give us the blow-by-blow.
Well, just imagine you're Peter, right? You spent the entire night trying to, wrangle your brother's chaotic energy.
Right.
And all he can think about is his next meal. I think that's when Peter really snaps.
Yeah.
Calls John out on his behavior, the need for attention, the lack of foresight, all of it.
Okay, so what does John do? Does he try to defend himself? Or is he just whatever, with his kebab in hand?
The story makes it seem like he's, at first, pretty dismissive.
Really?
Yeah, he even offers to share the kebab with Peter as if that's going to fix everything.
Oh, classic.
But as Peter's going on, you can sense this change in John. Maybe he's realizing this is serious now.
So is this the part where he has, a true moment of self-awareness? Does he realize he maybe went a bit too far?
Maybe, but I think it's more likely that he's just realizing how angry Peter actually is.
Okay.
This isn't just annoyance, right? It's deeper than that, years of frustration bubbling over.
Okay, so then what? Do they actually come to blows?
No, thankfully no punches are thrown.
Okay, good.
But it really does seem like this is the moment where things fundamentally change between them.
Wow.
Peter walks away, leaves John standing there with his kebab, and, presumably a lot to think about.
It's just incredible to me how this, seemingly insignificant thing, a kebab, becomes so loaded,
Okay.
It's like this perfect microcosm of their whole relationship.
Absolutely. Sometimes the biggest rifts, they come from the smallest cracks,
And this rift, this crack in their relationship, does it ever really heal?
That's the question, isn't it? And the story doesn't give us a clear answer. Some sources say that this was it, this night was so bad it created this permanent wedge between them.
Wow.
But others say no, they're brothers, Their bond is strong enough to survive anything, even this.
It makes you think, what if that night had gone differently?
Right.
What if they had just stayed in and ordered a curry? Would things be different now? Or was this always going to happen eventually?
It's a great question. And we might never know the answer, but the story gives us this really fascinating look at how complicated family can be.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in that world, right? The world of professional boxing. The pressure, the fame, the family legacy.
It really shows that even these people we think are larger than life, they still deal with the same stuff we do.
Absolutely. Sibling rivalry, family drama, it happens to everyone, even the Furies.
Speaking of family drama and unexpected events, we haven't even gotten to the handstand yet.
Oh, the handstand. Yeah.
So we've got John Fury, right? Few pints in, feeling good, feeling confident, and he decides to attempt a handstand. In a nightclub, what could go wrong?
And gravity's a powerful force.
You said it. And it sounds like on that particular night, gravity was not on John's side.
I bet.
The way the story tells it, it's just this slow motion train wreck, this attempt at athleticism just devolving into, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty.
It really does capture a lot about John's personality, doesn't it? The impulsiveness, the, what's the word? The unwavering belief in his own abilities.
A little bit of overconfidence, maybe.
Just a touch. But then again, it's also those qualities, right? That impulsivity, that willingness to just go for it that makes him so interesting.
Yeah, it's true. It's those same qualities that sometimes land him in these ridiculous situations. Okay, but we left off with Peter walking away after the whole kebab incident. What happens after that?
Well, like I said, the story really focuses on the immediate aftermath of that night.
Yeah, okay.
And it really drives home this point that it wasn't just a silly fight,
Hmm.
it brought all this stuff to the surface, this real divide between them.
So it was a turning point for them.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Like, after that night, things were different between them.
And did it impact their careers at all, this rift between them?
It's hard to say for sure. The story doesn't get into specifics, but it does kind of hint that I don't know, they drifted apart in the years that followed,
Mm.
professionally and personally.
So what's the takeaway here? Is this a story about why you shouldn't mix family and fame and a night out in Manchester?
Maybe. Or maybe it's just a story about two brothers, two very strong, very different personalities. And sometimes those personalities, they clash.
It's like that no matter what.
It's life, right? Even these guys, these larger-than-life characters, at the end of the day, they're still human, still dealing with family drama and sibling rivalry,
It's almost comforting, in a way.
right? They're just like us.
Well, on that note, I guess we'll leave everyone with this image. John Fury, mid-handstand, about to faceplant on a sticky nightclub floor.
A metaphor for life, maybe.
Exactly. And a reminder that sometimes, even in the most ridiculous circumstances, there's still a story to be told.
And maybe a lesson to be learned. And hey, if nothing else, at least it makes for a good story.
That's it for this deep dive. See you next time.